Shortly, we'll turn to questions from the audience. Before that, I get the privilege of throwing some questions to our panel. The first thing I'll ask is, we have seen some striking strikes over the past year. One of the things that distinguishes these campaigns is work stoppages, workers refusing, even when companies sometimes refused, even will go through verbal gymnastics to avoid saying the word strike. We know that what workers have done repeatedly is withheld their labor. They've gone out on strike. So that's something that we did not see in a large-scale way at Walmart or at fast food ever in the United States up until 2012. So why is it that each of you has taken up the strike? What do you think strikes have been able to accomplish that other kinds of tactics like political and media and consumer pressure that have certainly been tried against Walmart, to a lesser extent against fast food in the past, don't pack the punch without strikes that these strike campaigns have? And going forward, does diminishing attention from the public and real legal restrictions under U.S. labor law make the strike a tactic that is going to become less effective as the campaigns go on? Anybody?
So your question is,
well, to start with, what have strikes been able to accomplish that other kinds of tactics wouldn't? And are there any limits to what strikes can pull off?
well, I know for a fact, like from the first strike that I went on, you know, like the next week I got a raise like 20 cents. That's why I'm making $7.70 now. Right, woo, right? But I also know people in Manhattan, you know, far as like Wendy's and McDonald's workers, some people got offered to be a supervisor or a manager. Oh yeah, also my owner even came to me, oh, you wanna be a supervisor? You know, it just shows like, not for nothing, now, you know, they wanna bring like negotiation, they wanna try to compromise, like, you know, the strikes does shows fear, because, you know, some stores even had to like close temporarily because they didn't have, you know, no type of workers to help. So I think that just shows, you know, the boss that, you know, we're tired and we're gonna stick up for ourselves. Like, we're gonna do what we gotta do to get what we deserve. So I feel like that's what the strike really does. It really shows a different point of view of workers that, you know, we ready to make a change. So I think the strikes is just a strong punch. Like, that's just like, you know, a nice Mike Tyson hook, you know? So that's how I feel about it.
Okay, well, sorry.
You know, what I'm going to frame it for her, and then I'll turn it back over to Patricia. But Josh, to your question about you know, the efficacy of continued strikes, you know, the fact that Walmart and these companies continue to respond and they continue to make the changes that workers are striking about proves that they continue to be effective. And I'll use a couple of examples. One really good example is, you know, Walmart workers in Laurel, Maryland have pushed for additional scheduling hours, right? They did delegations, there was no response. They went on strike. Less than 2 days later, you see the manager post up the additional hours that were available that were needed to be covered, but were typically given to associates that were favored by that manager. And then all of a sudden they were posted publicly and available for people to choose from them. I would also argue that that the strikes work because they challenge Walmart in a much different way, both in terms of the public eye being on them, as well as you know, the response that workers see when they return to work is an increased sort of heroism amongst their coworkers, right? So it provides our Walmart members a tool to demonstrate to their coworkers that that they can continue to grow the organization and challenge them in a real way and see changes. Patricia, do you want to tell folks a little bit about why you went on strike and what, you know, the response that you saw that was different than when perhaps you did a delegation on the manager, and how your coworkers responded to that?
Well, when I went on strike, well, I don't really know how to answer that because they didn't really, well, they responded, but not in a good way, you know. they retaliated against us, and but my coworkers, they respect us, or a couple more have stepped up and are speaking out also. So at least we're building, yeah.
That's great.
On that
First time.
On that question of retaliation, I mean, it is an open secret in the United States that labor law does not do an awful lot to avert or avenge companies breaking the law by threatening to punish people, punishing people, purging workers. The worst that a company generally has to worry about if they illegally fire someone for being an activist is paying them back pay, probably several months or years later, minus any money that worker may have made somewhere else in the meantime. That's not a terrible business investment if you can bring down an organizing campaign by firing one or two people. So with that cheery introduction, given the allegations, particularly in the Walmart campaign and to a real extent in the fast food campaign of retaliation and threats of retaliation, on the strategic level, what have you found, if anything, to be effective in pushing back against retaliation? And on the person-to-person organizing level, what are the conversations you have with your coworkers like about the potential for the company to break the law when you stand up for yourself?
Well, as far as for the retaliation part, I try to let my coworkers know at first hand, like, they're gonna fire us anyway. Like, we get fired for eating a French fry. I could get fired for eating a chicken wing or a biscuit. I could get fired for probably just talking to my coworker. Like, I had to express that to my coworkers. Like, no matter what, how you look at it, like, whether you're on the boss's side, you're gonna get fired. Whether you're on my side, I don't want to say you're gonna get fired. You will have more protection, but I had to express that to them first, and then let them know behind that, like, you do have the right to do this, and you do have protection to do this. And it was just like, for example, I went on my first strike, and we had politicians pretty much walk us back in. That pretty much set a standard of like, okay, they got people behind them, like they're not doing this by themselves, like they got people that's gonna come in and make sure that they okay and that the bosses don't retaliate. So that's how I try to express it as far as with my coworkers that, listen, they could fire you right now. So it's like, at the same time, whatever the boss is telling you for that you could get fired, like, it doesn't make sense because they could fire you right now. So that's how I try to, talk to my coworkers, let them know, like, either way you go, like, you're not gonna have a job. You're not protected with the bosses. You're more protected with us. That's just pretty much.
Great. So on that note, I mean, I would argue that that's a lot of the similar tactics that our Walmart members have taken as they are, organizing. But on a sort of broader level, quite honestly, Walmart's going to do the same thing, right? They're going to frighten workers. But with yesterday's decision from the NLRB, all of the activities that workers have, been involved in over the last year and a half have been proven. I mean, the NLRB has decided that Walmart has acted illegally, and so workers have been overjoyed. They had a national conference call last night talking about what this meant, and so they have an active plan to continue to talk to their other coworkers to demonstrate that this is something that they can do, and so there's just a lot of conversations talking about what that means for associates. So, do you have anything about that? You can come back there.
Cool. So, speaking of coworkers, the scholar Kate Bronfenbrenner suggested to me that part of what we're seeing here is a return to what some people call minority unionism. The idea that, unlike strategies that some unions, including often the union I used to work for, take up, where a certain kind of aggressive tactic you don't use until you have a majority of workers ready to take it up. In the Walmart campaign and the fast food campaign, we've seen courageous minorities in individual stores, and certainly a small and courageous minority in the overall company and the overall industry take these actions and hope that the courage of a small group of workers engages a larger group of workers to get involved. So I'm curious to hear to what extent you think that's working, and in particular, at Walmart, as Silvia mentioned, there were 400 some workers who went on strike last year on Black Friday. We haven't so far seen that many workers go on strike on a single day since then. And I talked to the president of the United Food and Commercial Workers Union a couple months ago who said, look, it's not realistic to think that 500,000 of the 1.3 million Walmart workers are ever going to go on strike. So given the real threat of retaliation, my question would be, to what extent is the number of Walmart workers who are able to take that step, who choose to take that step, going to grow, and how much can this campaign win without a majority of the workforce
Right.
taking a more public role?
Right. So I think if we look back at history and where the labor movement started, it started off with a handful of people sitting down and going on strike. Amy, I know you mentioned Michigan and the auto workers, and if you think back to those sit-down strikes, I mean, that was a minority of folks, right? They demonstrated that they could go back to work, et cetera. I mean, that's what our Walmart workers have done, but it has to start with a small group of folks. And like I mentioned earlier, when Walmart workers go back to work, they really are regarded as folks who are speaking out for the same issues that everybody across the board faces. Just 2 weeks ago, we launched a new site called associatevoices.org, and we've actually allowed workers from across the country sort of weigh in anonymously to tell us, what needs to change at your store. And so, we've seen hundreds, I think over 1,000 requests and sort of comments come in from folks that things do need to change, right? And they're voicing the same concerns that our Walmart has been publicly calling for. So all of that said, we take a look at what the labor movement is doing, because it's not just about our Walmart, and but you take a look at UFCW's role in sort of helping our Walmart associates build their own organization and really challenge the company in a way that addresses store level issues as well as national issues like pay. You look at the role that SEIU is playing in supporting fast food workers. Again, fast food workers building their own organization, and then you even take a look at Change to Win and the work that they're doing with federal workers. So I would say that overall, regardless of the numbers, really they are being impactful and really challenging the company in a way that is forcing them to respond, as we can see by virtue of the fact that Walmart is publicly acknowledging and quite frankly bragging that 400,000 of their associates make $25,000 per year. Well, when you have 1.4 million associates making when you have 1.4 million associates, that means 800,000 of them are making less than $25,000 per year. So you see this response that we're getting. So I would argue that regardless of the numbers, we continue to push the company in a different way that forces them to respond all across the board. Does that answer your question?
Are we going to see more Walmart workers going out on strike than have before?
Patricia, do you want to tell them a little bit about how the increase in associates striking at your store?
Okay, well, when we went on strike, the last time we went on strike, and they seen the managers retaliate against associates. I'm sorry. And so, yeah, we have a few more people joining and a couple that are interested, so we're growing.
So all in all, across the board, yes, we've continued to see our numbers grow.
I would add that what a win can look like might be different. It could be workers, it could be more workers striking, it could be workers running for our public office. It could be a city passing a living wage or minimum wage bill that they wouldn't have thought about before until they saw workers out there in the streets in front of their store. And so I think there's a lot of different ways to look at a victory.
And
I was just thinking, but when can you look at it as a whole, like all of us? Like, as far as, I know it's Walmart and it's fast food, but just look at it as low-wage workers, period, actually just fighting, I know it's going to be, it had to be a certain number for Walmart or a certain number for fast food, but being that it's spreading and it's so many of us, I think as a whole, the minimum wage period should just, the minimum wage should just go up just for, the fact that, Walmart workers is, standing up and fast food workers are standing up, and it is pretty much just low wage workers. So I think at the same time, even though there's certain numbers that's supposed to come out for the both of us, I think as a whole, that should just say something in general. Like, it's just people, period, that just need more to live off of.
And for you, Naquasia, having been part of the very, very first fast food strike, what kind of effect did your strike have on the workers who didn't go out on strike the first time?
I think it had a lot of effect on it, because the simple fact, you know, the first strike only was like probably between 150 to 200 workers in New York City starting. And it's like, okay, that was just like a introduction, like, you know, this is where we're gonna start. And, you know, pretty much I think that right there just had to set the mold for other workers. Like, okay, it's like 200 of y'all going out, so like, this shouldn't be so bad. And then, you know, that was just the first strike. Then the second strike, it tripled. You know, it went up from 200 to probably about 500 to maybe 600. And then next thing you know, coming into the third strike, it's cities now involved. It's not just New York. I think the third strike, we probably had maybe like 12 cities that, you know, went on with us. And then the fourth strike, it was over 60 cities. So I think it set the momentum for, you know, fast food workers. Like, okay, if New York City could do this, you know, next thing you know, you seen Chicago, you seen people in Florida, you seen people everywhere. Just was like, all right, we all would need to stand up then. So I think from that right there, it just shows, like, my first strike, it just shows that, you know, people sick and tired. They want to stand up, and people realize they need to stand up with us. So I think that's what changed that. So, yeah.
Patricia, do you want to add anything else about your strike experience?
I'm so sorry. This is like my first time, and all these eyes on me. I'm nervous. But being on, or going, what was the question? I'm sorry. The strike?
Yeah, if there's more you want to say about the impact that you're going out on strike had on the conversations you were having with people who didn't go on strike, or the kind of impact you saw it have when you came back?
Okay, well, we're getting a lot more associates that are getting involved in the organization and, you know, coming with us, to tell their stories too. Yeah.
Amy mentioned the question of what a win looks like, and there's been a lot of speculation about this for both campaigns. The Our Walmart campaign, which has publicly said that the goal is not unionization per se, but improvements in respect and working conditions, and then the fast food campaign, where from the beginning workers have said they want $15 an hour and the right to organize a union without the intimidation that normally comes with trying to organize a union. I, a couple months ago, interviewed Mary Kay Henry and Scott Courtney of SEIU, the union that's been a key backer of these efforts and a key force from the beginning, the main national force in funding and directing those campaigns. One of the questions I asked, given the course of other campaigns, was whether an ultimate solution could look like some kind of national agreement between the union and a couple fast food corporations, in which the corporations would agree to pave the way for the fast food franchisees to let workers organize and bargain with them. And the union would agree to some kind of limitation on which stores would be affected and/or on what the labor costs could be that could change, or how much of a change there could be. And the response I got from SEIU at the time was it could look something like that. And there are a lot of things it could look like. So I'm curious, from your perspective, Naquasia, what level of compromise would you be open to, and what do you think would be the bare minimum to be a victory for the fast food movement?
Well, my honest answer, honestly, compromise is not it's not in my book. It's more, it's winning. I'm a winner, you know. So I would want to win our $15 in the union. Do you know how much the CEO makes an hour? He makes about 2 G's in 1 hour. I'm pretty sure, you know, these companies have enough to pay us $15 an hour. So me personally, that's what a victory would look like to me. And besides the money, just a respect as human beings, working human beings who are just working for their families and just make sure that it's food on the table and their bills paid. So that's what I see a victory as, us winning this $15 and plus a union, because we need to be protected. We need to be more protected. We're not protected at these jobs. Like I just said, we could easily get fired for eating a chicken wing. I was hungry, you know, like I didn't have enough to get no lunch today. You know, I had to make sure I got that $5 Metro card so I could get here today. So at least you could do just let me eat this chicken wing on the clock, you know. So that's how I see it.
You mentioned the money that the CEOs are making. One of the responses that both Walmart and the fast food companies make over and over when you ask about their wages is to try to reframe the discussion away from how much their workers are making. It's not surprising that these companies don't love to talk about what the average wage is. Walmart puts out a statistic for the average wage, which includes all of their managers and leaves out everybody that is part-time or a temp.
Which their company depends on. I mean, that's the backbone of the workforce that they're leaving out there.
Exactly. And so the conversation they want to have is about opportunity. So, for example, yesterday Walmart did not put out a statement about the labor board being ready to issue a complaint against them, but did put out a statement about how they're going around the country and having surprise promotions of lots of people. And as someone who is constantly asking for comment from McDonald's and from Walmart, I am constantly getting responses about opportunity and how, you know, you may come in at one job, and in fact the CEO, US CEO of Walmart said, well, why should we be embarrassed about having entry-level jobs? Entry-level jobs are great because that's how you get to better paid jobs, and that's the American dream, and the limit in these jobs is only, basically the only limit, to paraphrase, according to Walmart, to what you can accomplish at Walmart is your drive and your determination and your hard work. And fast food, the industry puts forward a very similar argument. So I'm curious, Naquasia, Patricia, and Amy, what your reaction is to that argument that these are jobs where if you work hard individually, rather than getting together collectively and going on strike, if you work hard enough individually, you'll secure whatever opportunity you really need at that company?
Well, I've been working hard for 2 years, and it's not taking me nowhere. Like, yes, I know that I understand what they're saying, but at the same time, like, me working hard is not helping. I mean, I gotta survive too. I mean, yeah, I could dream all I want to. I mean, I'm gonna keep dreaming, but at the same time, I gotta snap back to reality. I gotta look at, you know, what's really going on in the real world, you know. So at the same time, like I said, I mean, some people, they get stuck in these situations not because they want to. Because trust me, I know a lot of fast food workers, even probably Walmart workers that have, you know, more than one degree. Like they graduated from college already, but they still stuck in this hole because the economy itself is, I guess, you know, in this little issue. But it's like, I mean, how could you justify that? You know, we got to work hard. I've been working hard already. I already have 2 degrees, and I still can't find a job. But yeah, I have to work in order to survive, you know, my daily basis. Like, I need to make sure, you know, I eat, bills is paid, I have somewhere to lay my head, my family has somewhere to lay my head. I can't do that off of dreams. I have to do that in reality. So my thing is, what they're saying at the same time, it doesn't match up with reality. It only match up what they believe, you know, is the best for us. But they don't know what's best for us. They're not living in our shoes. I mean, if they was to live in our shoes one day, I bet you they would think a different way. So.
Okay. Well, in Walmart, first off, you don't move up unless you're, you know, a favorite. I've been there 11 years, and I've been in receiving and then out on the floor in sporting goods. So it's not true about work, or, you know, the more you, because I know I do everything there, and I can run every department, or I do it. So it's not true that you can move up like that.
Yeah, I think you can.
Favorite. Sorry.
Go ahead.
Sure. Okay. I mean, look, if you look at the structure of these companies, you can just do the math, and you can see how many employees are working in jobs that don't pay enough to support a family, and then there's a few jobs in the middle and even fewer at the very top where you actually can have a decent standard of living. There's not enough jobs in these industries to provide opportunity for everybody who is working hard and making these companies successful and profitable. And you can't, this is the core of our economy. You can't just say as a company, oh, you know, we started our company, we're gonna make tremendous profits off your work, but then, you know, you'll progress to some other company out there that's actually gonna pay you enough to live on. Those jobs aren't there. And we're seeing, you know, at Walmart in particular, they're having trouble having enough customers because the American people don't have enough money to be, you know, shopping at Walmart and to keep our economy going. So the economy supporting jobs have to be somewhere, and you can't support an economy on just a few jobs that pay enough to support a family.
That actually is a perfect segue to the final section of our discussion, which is questions from the audience, and perhaps you have one.
Yes. First of all, I want to echo what you say. In every company, there's a lot of peasants and peons. That's the base. And then it gets narrower and narrower as it goes up. So the people at the bottom have to make a living wage. Some people will move up, whether it's a legitimate trap or favoritism or whatever it is. But there's always going to be these people at the bottom. They're going to make up the bulk of the workforce, and they have to have living wages. Okay, second thing, I want to just raise that question and not spend a lot of time with it, but what about having unions, at least pension funds, maybe think about divesting Walmart stock? Now let me move on to that, because that's not really a new idea, you know. But let me put this progressive idea that companies like Walmart are essentially basically welfare savings because they are depending on the government to provide food stamps and Medicaid to their workers who are essentially living in poverty, even though they're working almost full-time or full-time. I don't like to quote Mitt Romney, but you remember that Mitt Romney talked about how some people don't like to take responsibility. Those of us who indirectly or directly own Walmart shares, let's say through a 401k or through an S&P 500 stock index, in a way, we're not taking the responsibility because our share price we are benefiting from that higher share price. And the reason we have that higher share price is because of those buybacks, where the money is being spent on buying back shares instead of giving workers a wage that enables them to avoid using the safety net. So it's really the shareholders who are not taking personal responsibility, as Mitt Romney would like to.
Thank you.
describe it.
So, Silvia, I know we've seen European pension funds blacklist Walmart. We've also seen U.S. pension funds use their investment in Walmart to get an opportunity for activists to speak from the floor of the shareholder meeting. Should U.S. unions be divesting from Walmart?
Truthfully, I don't know how many unions invest in Walmart. I have no idea, so not a good question for me. But I will say, you know, on that note, the folks that are investing in Walmart, I mean, we do a lot of capital stewardship work with them. And so over the last couple of years, part of what I mentioned was that 2-week strike in June was Walmart associates going down to the annual shareholders meeting, which is not a boardroom meeting. It is, you know, a 15,000 person event where, you know, you have Walmart's handpicked associates from across the country attending, cheerleaders, people that love Walmart that are handpicked, right? And you have our Walmart leaders getting up there through our friends who have Walmart shares. The idea being that we can make change from within the company itself. So I think a couple of examples are probably probably the New York City Pension Fund, CalPERS and CalSTARS out in California, who are actively working with us to move shareholders to really challenge the company from that point of view as well. So it's much like the argument that that I guess we would make with workers. Why would you leave the company rather than try to make change from within? But I'm not sure specifically about how many folks are unions are investing in it.
Other questions for any of our panelists? Yeah, Ned?
Naquasia, Patricia, thank you both for being here. You talked a little bit about some of the hardships involved in trying to make ends meet on low wages. I'm wondering, right now, I mean, it's getting colder, so there are heating bills to think about. The holidays are coming up, Thanksgiving. Do things get tighter around this time of year for you both?
Wow, it's funny that you mentioned that, because just this morning I had a conversation with my grandmother. My grandmother said to me, I don't know what we're going to cook for Thanksgiving because there's no money. So that's like the first that I ever, 22 years of my life having Thanksgiving, that's something my family always makes sure we have and do. And just to hear that out of my grandmother's mouth, it broke me. My day kind of started off bad, just hearing that. 'Cause I just told you, Monday I just picked up a $70 check. Mind you, 30 of that went to a Metro card for me to get here and get to work for the rest of the week. So I only got $40 left. So that $40 going to my Thanksgiving meal. So I'm broke for the rest of the week. And, I like people. I'm a very giving person. I would love to give, but it's like this year I really can't give. The last 2 years I really couldn't give because it was like I made sure my priorities is good first, and then whatever I have left is just I have to make the best of it, and that's what I just do. So I try not to look at the struggle. I look at it like it's gonna come back around to me, some type of way, some shape, form, but even better. It's just an obstacle that I just gotta go through. And yeah, it's hard and it's disgusting, really, not having Thanksgiving. Oh no, that can't happen. So I don't know what we're gonna do, but I know me and my family will make it happen. We're gonna have to, for the better. So it gets rough. Like right now, I don't really have a coat. You know what I'm saying? I don't have a coat, but I'm still making, I still have, make myself warm because I can't afford to get sick. I don't have health insurance, so I know I can't get sick. I gotta go to work. So it does get tough. I don't want to get sick, and and I do want to enjoy the holidays, but I gotta do what I gotta do to make it happen. So.
Well, I have an appointment with the food bank, so they're gonna help me out for Thanksgiving, but I work that day, so.
More questions?
What's
Yeah,
the day
go ahead.
before?
I want to address this to Amy. By the way, I think this panel was terrific. We should focus on what workers can do and what workers are doing. And so many of these discussions leave that out. Amy, you made the argument that sounds very much like the argument that Robert Reich makes in the movie and in the book the movie is based on, that the capitalists themselves are screwing themselves by not ginning up the ability of the masses of Americans to spend more. The problem I have with the book, and I said this in an article where I reviewed the movie and the book, was that there's no politics to that. That his thrust, I'm not saying that it's your thrust as well. His thrust.
I'll put the politics in.
Hang on. Yes. His thrust is that the ruling class better figure this out or they're going to be in danger. So it's a way of appealing to them to do the right thing for themselves. They don't. They won't. It only happens through compulsion. So what is the politics of the program that you're presenting? Where do you see forming these kinds of coalitions? Where are the weak spots? What's the strategy for doing it? Because the strategy is absent completely in Reich's analysis.
I will say, and I don't have the answer for the strategy, but I will say that when we built the middle class in this country, and this gets back to something that Miles said in his introduction, it was companies doing it, it was workers doing it, and it was the government doing it. There were contributions on all sides. Well, right now, we don't see companies, there are a few companies out there that are paying a decent wage, but as a whole. We don't see business working to build a middle class in this country again, to rebuild the middle class. We see government in some places. I hailed those states and cities that are raising their minimum wages. I don't see it coming out of Congress right now. It should. What we see is workers fighting like hell and taking tremendous risks to try to, get their fair share. And I think that's the politics. There's a lot of, my title is policy analyst. I can give you a bunch of policies the government should be implementing right now. Raising the minimum wage is one of them, and making it easier for workers to organize so they don't have to take these huge risks just to do things that are already supposed to be all of our rights. But that's where I see the change coming from. It's from people being brave and standing up.
Time for a couple more quick questions. Yeah, go ahead. Good idea.
So thank you both for being here, especially you, Naquasia, you're like doing 2001 right, but it's good for us to hear of what's really going on. So my question is, for people who don't work in retail or fast food, how can we help? I mean, I boycott KFC and Walmart, but I wasn't really going to KFC or Walmart anyway. Right? So it's like that's very easy, but what can we do to support your work?
I think you could do as far as like come out to strike lines when we have strike. Definitely come out to that. Walking back, like if you can't come out to strike lines, you can help walk back in workers, or if delegations happen, definitely, it's always good to, like, if a boss do retaliate, we just have a whole group of people, they don't know who is this, that's just coming in and just, taking over, and let them know, like, you can't be doing this to workers because workers have the right. Those are some of the different ways I think, you could help, or like if you have Twitter or Instagram or Facebook, if you find any stories, that you find that's interesting to you, share the story. Like some people, not everybody sees this, but even though the media gets it out there, some people still, look past it, but I'm pretty sure if you share a post on your Facebook to all your friends and family, and they be like, wow, what is this about? You could put them on, and you never know. That could be somebody who's a fast food worker themselves. And that's some of the different ways I say that people who are not into retail or fast food, that's the only way I can see, you helping, just standing beside us and supporting our movement.
Yeah, in the back.
I wanted to say that I thought that the terrible inspiring stories we heard are the kind of the tip of the iceberg phenomenon of the U.S. economy creating bad jobs. It's happening all over the economy. I can mention industries like construction, truck driving, and college teaching.
This is a question, right?
Yeah. And the question is, how does it feel to be in the sectors of the economy where workers are actually fighting back against this generation of big jobs? If you're actually in the vanguard, do you feel like you're in the leadership of this movement to recreate an economy of work?
Oh.
How does it feel to be awesome?
I don't know.
Simply put.
Yeah, I don't know. I just like the support of all the other workers, that, I don't know. I just like the support of the other workers and to know that they're in the same situation. And did I answer? Oh, sorry.
The same thing, like, it feels good, as the people. First of all, things that I learned growing up, it's just that I always learn everybody's for themselves. And, that's how, especially in New York, everybody like, I ain't, I'm for my, what you, look at evil. So, it feels good, to see people now today, doing what Martin Luther King Jr. was doing 50 years ago with the sanitation workers. You know, it's good to see that it never stopped. Like, that was just a start. With Martin Luther King Jr., that was just a start. And we were supposed to keep on going. And it's good to see that not only that it's people come, you know, everybody come together, but the youth generation is realizing that, yo, we don't do something about this, like, our generation gonna be going. I know that for a fact. Like I said, I'm only 22 years old, and it's like, if my generation keep going the way it's going, we are not going to survive in the next 10 years. So I think this is a demonstration to show that we are the small people or the low class. We got to come together, because honestly, it's more of us than it is them.
Yeah. So the final official question goes to the woman in the dark hat and the glasses.
First, I'd like to say thank you to the two of you and all of your co-workers for your courage in getting out and standing up for your right to a decent wage and for decent living and respect and dignity on your job. You do the work, they make the profit. So they have to share the wealth. And yes, that's probably a socialist idea, but it's good. But what I'd like to ask Christina, is it Christina? I'm sorry, Patricia. Is for Walmart, is there community organizing as well? Do you have community groups? I know here in New York, there are come out called strike. But do you have that? I know I'm also doing a tad bit of work with the Nissan workers in Mississippi. And you've got workers for the UAW workers and in the South and trying to organize. That's a whole different story. But there is a community group. They actually have a board. And they really work with the workers and try to get more folks to join the union. So is that something?
Yes, we do,
Okay.
yes.
Churches and
Yes,
Great.
it's still building.
so continue to organize, because it's slow, but you see that more and more of your colleagues are starting to participate, and that's the way to go, that's what you want. And then you can, as you're organizing them, and I want to thank you because compromise is not part of trying to union.
I know that's right.